A live stream. Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to Academy of Astrology UK monthly podcast. Every month, me, Mandy, and Marcus will meet here and bring you something new about this month. Hello, Mandy. Hello, Marcus. How are you?
Hello, hiya.
Good. Hi.
Hi, yes, it's a very busy week, and then we have five planets in Gemini, so everything is like a it like keep popping up and something interesting. And I noticed that a lot of discussion and a lot of things like new things to learn. And I think today we are going to focus on few topics, especially the new moon and the full moon. That there around that there's some issue. No, I forget Gemini commercial. Before we start, I have to run some commercial. Sorry about that. First is tomorrow. I invite astrologer, a very senior astrologer from Portugal, from Lisbon, Luisa Asengo. She's going to teach us family astrology. This is such an important topic in astrology. Most people will probably want to talk about a career, want to talk about money, health, and whatever. But family is kind of foundation of our life, and it is so important. I no need to say last time when Mandy talked about life purpose, that was so popular. Well done, Mandy.
Good.
And we received a lot of great feedback. We received a lot of feedback, really. And so this time will be the family. And next month, only July would be the 6th of July. Uh, our friend from Ireland, Margaret's great. Margaret's going to talk about the relationship, but from a very interesting view about what rather than who. So, what do you need in a relationship rather than who you are going to need in a relationship? And that is a fantastic topic. And and then by the August, I have a big surprise for you. That's the 10th of August, Sue Tompkins is coming to join us, and she's going to do the fun interpretation of the chart. So how are we going to enjoy to do the chart interpretation? And Sue just like going to bring some interesting, study and the case to do this workshop. So come to join us if you watch this and you don't want to miss it. Especially I promoted three for £45. You still have a chance. Send me, DM me, and I will give you the link. If you miss it, well, each topic is £20. This is the first part of commercial. Sorry, I still have a second part of commercial. Because I just finished the meeting from the conference, Astrological Association conference. We have the discount open to public from the Astrological Association, and this year Monday will give two talk, right? Yeah, Mandy, I'm so proud. I'm so proud of Mandy going to give two talks. And I'm going to give one talk because board member, we have to sacrifice. Okay, I have to contribute a talk. And so apparently, we don't have many room left. So if you want to come to stay with us in Leicestershire, hurry up and don't miss this discount. I think for 4 nights is a £125 off. That is discount I already posted everywhere. So go to find the Astrological Association website and use the discount code. That's it. This is commercial time. Thanks.
Yeah.
And
And
then
if you're not in the
yeah.
if you're not in the UK or you can't get to Leicestershire, it's also an online conference as well.
Thank you,
And
Mandy.
there's 5 tracks, and obviously whether you're doing it online or you're in person, you can't see everything, which is why the AA are giving you access to all the recordings of every single talk for, is it how long is that for, a month or 90 days or something like that?
I can't remember.
Long enough for you to get through them all anyway.
Yeah. Go to
It's
the
Yes,
website to
interesting.
check it. I just like, oh,
I've been at this conference many times, both as a speaker and as
yeah.
just a delegate, just enjoying the atmosphere. And you just can't see everything. So it's great now that they're starting to give you access to all the recordings as well afterwards.
I
Yeah.
have to say, it's going to be fun if you are come to join us in live session. We're going to have a lot of a chatting party, and it's nice to hanging out together. Anyway, let's go back to our today topic because people were starting to lose interest. Let's start with the new moon. The new moon what happened yesterday. I think it was 6th of June. And then sun moon conjunction happened at 16-degree Gemini. So who want to start? Why I'm going to post the link everywhere.
Okay.
Volunteer?
Could we have a look
Okay.
at the chart,
Oh, you want
Rod?
to look at the chart? Of course.
please.
Let me share my chart.
We've got a lot
Here
of
we
well,
are.
we're in full Gemini season at the moment. You can see there in this chart, can't you?
Yeah.
Had the new moon
Okay.
yesterday, so the sun's going to be in there for a while. We've got Venus in Gemini. We've got Mercury. We've still got, I was going to say still got Gemini. Jupiter in Gemini. It's just gone into Gemini. So it's like it's very so I mean every day is a school day, right? With Gemini, every single day is a school day. All of that. Time for gathering information, for remembering facts, for dreaming up new ideas. It's a mutable air sign, so I always say with Gemini, it's really great to change your mind all the time, and it's not good to be changing your mind all the time and make of that what you will. But that's very much says a lot about some of the nature of the changeable Gemini, basically. So yeah. Very Gemini. Good for networking, keeping busy. It's a restless energy. It's very, as I say, it's an air sign, so you can be very much in your head with Gemini, scattered energy as well. I always recommend with Gemini, it's good if you need to, like myself, who sometimes finds it difficult to stay grounded. It's great to do something with your hands the when everything is in Gemini, the sun, particularly Mercury. Mercury's about the hands anyway, because Mercury in Gemini, Mercury's about that, Mercury in Gemini is about that craft. It's about hands. It's about doing something with the hands, whether that is sort of just enjoying textures or getting your hands in the soil or giving or having a massage or something like that. I think that's good use for try and get yourself out of the head and get more into that kind of handsy Gemini. Obviously, be careful what you do with your hands as well. Do get permission before you start putting your hands on anyone else. But Trump's got lots of Gemini, hasn't he?
Yes. Let's not go there. Yeah. Oh, that's great. I'll just add to that, Mandy. I mean, it's such an interesting pile-up, isn't it, in Gemini with Venus and Jupiter flanking the conjunction of the sun and moon, sort of Jupiter at the beginning of the sign, Venus just after the sun. So that will add a lot of lightness and possibilities and multiplication of opportunities. I loved your analogy, Mandy, about it's like every day's a school holiday. I would just say with that square from Saturn to the new moon, though, it's like every day's a school holiday, but there's loads of homework to do, or every day's a school holiday, but you've got some kind of like mad obligation for the swim team. Do you know what I mean? Like you've got all these swimming fixtures or something, or every day's a school holiday, but there's like two of your friends aren't speaking to you. And there's some, like Saturn, there's some kind of limitation or blockage or stuff to work through for all that Gemini stuff. So Gemini is enormously positively weighted this month, as exactly as you were saying, Mandy, with all of that sort of like that thought positive energy, and as you were saying, like the potential to sort of like for too many thoughts or too many doors to be open. But there is that Saturn square is going to kind of force us, I suppose, on a collective level to try to edit things down against our will, really, because we're not going to be able to do all of it. It's sort of like, here are all these possibilities and all these things you could be doing, but because of certain practical limitations, you'll have to reduce those things. And I'm just thinking Saturn in Pisces, they may be emotional limitations or they may be real world limitations of some sort. I don't know. What do you guys think of that?
Yeah, I actually said that every day is a school day, not a school holiday. But actually,
Okay. Oh,
I
then in that
think I did.
case, Mandy, you were spot on because
At least
that's
at least I think I did. That was what I meant to say.
but
But
I
every
heard
day's a
school holiday
but
because it was just like I thought like with Venus and Jupiter there, it's like every day's a school holiday. But
yeah, absolutely. I agree as well. You ran with that analogy and it made total sense as well. But I just thought that
No,
point.
but I think actually, if you said school day, that's even better. And apologies if for mishearing it because it's with the Saturn thing. It is like I always see Saturn as Professor Snape, so it is
Yeah.
kind of like Professor Snape's up in your business a bit. Do you know what I mean? So it's sort of like you're having fun with your friends, and then there's this strict teacher who's sort of like just hovering and causing problems. So
Yeah, and also because obviously Gemini is mutable and changeable and very adaptable, very versatile, and all those kind of things. And then Saturn, Saturn doesn't feel too happy in a mutable sign, which is of course a very mutable sign, isn't it? Pisces, and it's that kind of thing that Professor Snape um analogy. You can kind of imagine, if we run with that analogy, one day you'll get a real rollicking for doing something, and
yeah,
the next day you'll just get a real rollicking to do something completely different or for not doing something.
yes,
What gets you
yes,
into trouble can change day by day with this kind of Gemini square with Saturn Pisces, and you don't know where you are in the end, but you still got that strictness of the Saturn, but the boundaries are constantly moving and you can't quite keep up with it. And that applies to your own boundaries as well. You might find your own boundaries being more flexible, more porous, and perhaps that can be a good thing if you're too fixed, or perhaps it's a bad thing. I mean, I think Gemini is a Gemini is a, what was I going to say? I forgot what I was going to say. That's another thing with Gemini. You get so full of
it's mutable air, isn't it? So
ideas, beautiful air, and your brain can kind of go ahead of itself, and then you forget what you're going to
and there
say.
are so many
Exactly what I
different
did.
options, so many different doors you could open that it's just like
Yeah,
well, that or
Yeah.
that or that or that. Yes.
yeah. But there you go.
Let me use an example. My favorite example from Sue Tompkins. That I always remember when Sue described three different modality, like cardinal big. When she described the mutable, people with a lot of mutable sign, they are kind of when they try to crossroad, they will just try to think. They will start thinking about the other alternative project, an alternative way, alternative path. So when there is too many traffic, they will probably like, oh, maybe I can go to this way and that way and turn
Yeah.
right, turn left, and then eventually they just totally get lost and they forget where they're supposed to be.
Whereas Cardinal will just like step out into the road,
Yeah,
and
whatever.
blah,
Yeah.
blah.
Yeah.
Fix will just stand there for hours.
Yeah.
I mean, we're all
Yes.
just being a bit silly now, but well, I am anyway. And
No,
but
I think it's. I
stand
really
there for
like that
hours
analogy.
waiting.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
works.
yeah,
It works.
yeah.
But I just think that scenario with the mutable side, you just like totally get lost away, don't know where they are going to. That is super interesting.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But another part, sorry, Marcus, sounds like you're going to add something.
I mean, if it was just a thought on just two other little nuances from traditional.
Please, go on.
One was both that we don't want to say that all that weight in Gemini is very positive at the moment. It's just we don't want to sort of take away from that. I think Jupiter, although Jupiter's in detriment in Gemini, because like Jupiter wants to multiply things and it I think in Jupiter and any of the Mercury ruled signs, he sort of loses coherence because Jupiter wants to expand, but he wants to create a unified vision, like a grand philosophy of things. But the Mercury signs, like, what's the word? Is it diffract? Is that the word? When you split light into all the different colors. So Jupiter wants to shine a light on a thing and create a big unified thing. And Gemini just diffracts it into this and that and that and that and that. So it's just like it's Jupiter and Gemini is this big disco ball of possibilities that's endlessly expanding, and it's kind of fun but it's also endlessly distractible. So it's great for generating ideas, but not necessarily for generating coherence. But Jupiter's in, I think, at the beginning of Gemini. Let me just check my list. I think Jupiter, no, not quite. Right at the new moon, I was just checking Jupiter's term. So no, Jupiter is not in any dignity there. But I think Venus is in her terms in those degrees of Gemini where she is at the moon. So that means that Jupiter is generally going to sort of multiply all the possibilities that Mercury can see, possibly to a state of distraction. Distraction being a very Gemini word, actually. And then Venus is going to make this new moon a bit, or this month, a bit more positive, I think, and a bit more, I don't know, enjoyable, even possibly despite that Saturn square. And the final point before I shut up is that what's interesting to me about this one is there's something a little bit paradoxical about this. And Mandy, you could maybe speak to this because you've got a natal, there's a natal resonance here because you've got Saturn in Pisces and Jupiter in Gemini. So I find that configuration, and similarly Saturn in Pisces squaring Venus in Gemini, quite interesting, because Saturn's in Pisces and Pisces is ruled by Jupiter traditionally, and is also the exaltation of Venus traditionally. So it's kind of like Venus and Jupiter have a lot of control or dominion over Saturn in Pisces. But this is why it's paradoxical. Saturn is in the 10th sign from Gemini when Saturn is in Pisces. So Saturn is in what would traditionally be called the overcoming position, because a planet that's in the 10th sign from another one is like in the boss position. It's like the 10th house position. So it's the overcoming square. So you've got this really interesting paradox where Saturn is creating these limitations, like Professor Snape, able to impose his authority on those naughty school children in Gemini who are just wanting to have fun. But the Gemini school kids kind of know how to get around the teacher a little bit. They know how to get away with some stuff. So it's just this interesting month of possibilities limited by obligations and responsibilities, but you also sort of know how to work around them a bit. Yeah, something like that.
Interesting, Marcus. Well, Mandy, do you want to add anything in?
Yeah, fantastic analogy. Thank you, Marcus. That's amazing. It's funny, actually, as you said, I've got Saturn in Pisces and I've got Jupiter in Gemini. And it's very interesting. Both of those planets are very strong in my chart. So Jupiter in Gemini is the final, along with Mercury in, it's a mutual reception, and they are final depositors of my chart. So I've got a very Mercurial Jupiterian chart. At the same time, I've got lots of planets that are ruled traditionally by Saturn as well. So yeah, it's very Jupiter. And I always think of Jupiter and Saturn when they're very strong in a chart, whatever sign that they're in. It speaks, I think, to that search for meaning and that real desire to bring ideas and possibilities and potentialities into some kind of material reality. And with the nebulous nature of Saturn in Pisces, that's often not as easy as it might be. And the kind of scattered energy of Jupiter in Gemini again. And this is speaking to, not just to my chart, but it's speaking to the general energies that are in the sky at the moment. Yes. What's happening now, of course, but using, the jumping off point.
It's almost trying to express the inexpressible. It's the sort of weight of trying to put those sort of diffuse concepts of Pisces into words, or which is a beautiful work, but also quite a tricky one, because yeah.
So that sense of purpose and that sense of direction that naturally comes with the combination of Jupiter and Saturn is a bit more difficult, because what direction do you go into? There's too many choices. With Gemini, I think if you have strong Gemini in your chart, and with this Gemini time we're having at the moment, then it's very much, I think, it should perhaps be considered that what you do with your life is maybe more than one thing, depending on whether it's, whether it's about your career, or whether it's about your sort of passions, whether it's relationships, or whatever it is. It's probably going to be more than one thing, possibly more than one thing at a time. Or maybe it's not about, because with all these mutable signs, say if we're talking about career, for example, someone very strong in mutable is they're probably not going to want to choose their career at the age of 16 and do that until they retire at the age of however long it is until they retire. With mutable, there's always that, going back to every day is a school day. Then Jupiter is very much about that wisdom. And I think one of the ways to approach Jupiter in Gemini is to take all that information, and where is the wisdom, and where is the understanding, and where is the meaning, and trying to find that wisdom and understanding meaning. And that comes through maturity, and maturity comes through those Saturnian experiences that we all go through as Saturn goes around the sky and makes its own aspects to our chart. And when we have experience, Saturn's about experiences, and Jupiter's essentially about what meaning we put onto those experiences. So although they seem very opposite planets in a lot of ways, I think they are essential to each other.
Yeah, that's lovely, Mandy. I really, really like that. And just a thought, because I always think of Saturn as one of the editing planets. It's a subtractive planet, isn't it? Essentially. So it's almost like what you're saying about the Saturn being experience, and sort of, so some of the experience for those very mutable people, but also mutable, when you've got so many options, is that experience will tell you that you have to edit, you have to shut some doors so that you can open others. And I think maybe it's something like with the square, your sort of life forces you, because Saturn basically at some point comes and gives you the stick over the back of the head, doesn't it? That's what Saturn does, is good at that. So it just sort of like forces you to kind of go, okay, these are all the things that I can see. These are all the mental possibilities, the creative possibilities, the communicative possibilities that we have. But we can't do this and that because we haven't got time, or because we haven't got the energy, or because this can't happen. So we'll have to do this, or we'll have to edit that out. And I think, I don't know. So one of the things you're saying about the relationship possibility, it's interesting at the moment, Venus, I know you want to talk a bit about this, Rod. So Venus being close to the sun. So I'll maybe shut up and let you say a bit about that, and then we'll come back to that.
Well, no. I was even trying to think about to skip this because we run out of time.
Okay.
But yes, basically, I think you can talk a little bit about this Sun Venus conjunction. Is that okay?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, go on.
Oh, okay. So I was going to say Venus is very close to the sun at this new moon, which is in traditional astrology, that's combust. So that just means a planet close to the sun was harmed in a sense, but really the specific meaning of it is it can't see or be seen. It's like so close to the sun, like literally if you look in the sky, you can't see the planet. There's no hope because it's, you can't look at the sun. So the planet cannot see or be seen. So combustion means burned up. So really the way that might show up is that in somebody's private life, for example, their career may take precedence over their love life if something's really close to the sun, because the sun is, the person's what their vocation, what they're aiming towards, and they just don't have time for romantic stuff. Or it can show up in some way like that. So when we're talking about the editing thing, or about all the possibilities that Gemini can open up, there might be lots of aspirations towards stuff that will improve one's love life, but actually it's probably going to get subsumed towards career and towards the necessity of sort of working on stuff that's going to improve yourself. With the Sun Saturn square, there's always this feeling of pushing against obstacles, internal or external. So yeah, because I know, Rod, you've been on a bit of a tip this past couple of weeks about astrologers going on about Venus Cazimi, and Venus Cazimi is a wonderful thing, but only lasts a few hours, folks. The rest of the time she's combust when she's close to the sun. So yeah, anyway.
Yeah, I mean, yes, that's why I just let you explain, because if I go on, I will start again. Why cherry picking about Kazimi? But how could you ignore combust before and combust after?
I didn't want to wind you up and let you go, Rod, but yeah, no, just
And in case
I was
anyone's
yeah
wondering,
yeah.
you've missed it. Sorry. Hot
Don't
spot.
worry. Yeah, don't worry. I already invited Jupiter. I record a very short 10 minutes podcast about it. And Jupiter give a very clear definition about
Yeah, just to
combust
be clear,
under
Rod, for our
something.
listeners, that's Jupiter Lie,
Yeah,
not Jupiter, the
Jupiter,
planet Jupiter. We've got
Jupiter lie.
Jupiter Lie, who works for the Academy of Astrology. He's an amazing astrologer, has done an Instagram with Rod on it. So, yes.
Yeah, yeah. All right. I can't wait to jump to next. What's going to happen is tomorrow, Mars going to move to Taurus.
Whoa.
Oh yeah. Who want to start it?
Go on, Marcus.
Marcus, please.
Sure. Okay, because I
Yes,
feel like I've been
please.
hogging the mic in this one a bit. Okay.
Oh no, not at all.
Well, I usually do. Yeah. So, okay. I mean, Mars has been really strong in Aries, so it's not good for. I mean, Mars in Aries is really good for getting stuff done and for being motivated and for taking the lead. As we discussed, I think last month, it's not so good for impulse control, perhaps, but it's good for activating things. And Mars in Taurus traditionally is in detriment. A planet in detriment, meaning it's Mars would be in the opposite from the sign, one of the signs that rules, which is Scorpio. So Mars in any of the Venus rule signs, Taurus or Libra, is in detriment. I don't think planets in detriment are weak. They're not weak. They're just really unorthodox and sort of counterintuitive. And I think one of the things that detriment seems to indicate is that things sort of gradually coming apart over time, or the planet undoes its own agenda a bit. And that can be used in constructive ways. So Mars in Taurus, it can be like a negative thing. It can be anger can come out like people break physical objects, but they can also be people who, if it's an individual, can really push through and get a lot of work done slowly over a period of time. And they're often very physical people. I know a lot of people who are very physical hard workers who have Mars in Taurus, and they have quite good stamina. They can really keep going for a long period of time because it's a fixed sign. I think that the difficulty with Mars in Taurus is that, like Mars in any Venus ruled sign, is if somebody really it's not reacting appropriately if somebody crosses one of your boundaries or something like that. Like Mars in Aries is somebody, if you diss a Mars in Aries, you'll get a slap in the face or they'll come straight back at you, And sometimes that is necessary to react in a spontaneous, not over the top way. Mars in Taurus will often not, it will take ages to even realize that it is angry about something sometimes. And then it's sort of just permanently angry. And they don't know what to do with that anger. So I think on a collective level, it would be Mars in Taurus is good for getting physical work done. Like if you've got to go and dig a load of holes in the garden or something, then that's good, or do a load of joinery. But it may also be good to sort of try and, if you get frustrated, to just sort of like check in with yourself and I don't know, spend some time in nature. And I don't know, I'll have to think about that. But because I know this because I have family members with Mars in Taurus, and they're generally very peaceful, lovely people. I mean, it depends what else is going on in an individual's chart, but they often have difficulty knowing when they're angry. And by the time they realize they are, it's sort of like they're permanently annoyed, which is an interesting one. So yeah.
Yeah,
thoughts on that, guys?
I was just thinking about the idea of resentments as well, more than that outward anger, that kind of brewing resentment.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. And the other thing I thought of that came to my mind as you were talking about Mars in Taurus was the farmer, the idea of farmer.
Oh yeah.
Someone who owns the land, who works on the land, and who protects the maintains and protects the land. Whereas Aries is more the we're talking, I'm talking very kind of broad analogy here and cliches in a way, astrological cliches in a way, but Mars in Aries is the warrior with he's always got something sharp and pointy. Mars is all about sharp, pointy things. You know, and you think about the farmer also has
Ah,
sharp pointy things to work the land and sort of breaking the ground and that kind of thing. But
yes.
whereas I guess just maybe overstretch the analogy. Mars in Aries is like breaks the ground, starts something new. That Mars
Yeah.
in Taurus is the one that follows through and maintains. So Taurus is all about maintenance, I think, as well. But like you said, Marcus, I totally agree. You know that it can be difficulty. Well, it's finding an alternative way to deal with and express the anger. It's also finding a different and alternative way to understand your desires, whether that's what you want out of
Yeah.
life or your romantic sexual desires as well. It's a sign that can get, generally Taurus, it's a sign that can get very attached as well.
Mm.
Whereas, again, I'm talking very, very broad analogies, like Mars in Aries, for example. You know, if you think in the romantic context, of like that love comes suddenly and maybe just burns itself out very quickly, where
Yeah.
you've got that slow burn with Taurus, and
Mm.
you know, a person perhaps in Mars and Taurus might still
Yeah.
feel in love years after the moment has passed, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
Oh.
difficulty letting go, you know.
To make me think of two things there, Mandy. One was a biblical quote, and you know me, I'm not a big Bible person, but it's a biblical quote. It just made me think of it. Beat your swords into plowshares, you know, and that's what's happening from you were saying about Mars. Aries is the pointy weapons and Taurus. So that's literally the Mars going from Aries to Taurus is beat your swords, turn your swords into plowshares, you know, so
Perfect.
repurpose your weapons into
Perfect.
gardening and maintaining and growing stuff. And the other was just an observation about I have noticed, I mean, this is a medical astrology thing. I've noticed a few people, and I don't have a big enough sample size to know if this is universally true, but I've noticed a few people with Mars in Taurus, the anger tends to get somatized over time. If they've got something they are resentful of over time, where there is this slow burn of anger, and anything Taurus has, it tends to hold on to because it's an earth sign. It's very physical. So it tends to come up as physical symptoms of inflammation in the body. And you know that has both a good and a bad side. They're not out there killing people, they're not plotting revenge, they're not taking it out on people, but they can end up taking it out on their own bodies and on their own selves. And ironically, most of those people, as I say, have got great stamina and they're very good physically. So I suppose there's a you know, positives and negatives there, but I just think one of the solutions might be to just do some physical work in the garden and do gardening, and or do not just gardening, but any physical therapy would be very useful if Mars in Taurus, for whatever reason, is a trigger point for you. If you've got lots of fixed signs emphasized in your chart, for example.
Yeah. Well, I would suggest we move because we still have a couple minutes, but we still have a full moon chart to look at. Should we?
Okay.
Let's go. Full moon chart. Well, on the 22nd of June, after the Cancer increase, we have a full moon happen only 1 degree Capricorn. Here we go. So it is a very interesting because after that, everything in Gemini now, things change.
Very
The energy is so different. Have you noticed that?
Do you want to go first, Mandy, or shall I? Or do you want to say
something? I don't mind saying a few words. The first thing that kind of strikes me really about the dynamic between Capricorn and Cancer, because we've got the Capricorn moon and we've got the opposition of Sun in Cancer, is they both have something to do with defensiveness. So Cancer is a lunar sign, so obviously it rules the moon, and whatever sign your moon is in your chart and whatever it's doing in your chart, the house, whether it's angular or aspects it's made, it's always a very sensitive point in anyone's chart. You know, actions, reactions, you know, it holds a lot of energy from the past as well. So you've got that defensiveness. That's why we have that idea of the Cancer is, you know, the soft the soft body hides in the hard shell. So that's very much a Cancerian thing. And then in a rather different way, when you have Capricorn, you've got Saturn, which we've already talked about. Saturn is about the, restrictions and boundaries, and and it is also, that's what is the reason for, I mean, psychologically we have psychological boundaries. Those are our defenses to protect us. So that's kind of very, there's kind of a very protective energy there, really. I think whenever you have the Capricorn and Cancer together in an opposition, and because it's a full moon, and the moon of course is very reflective, so any kind of lunation is a very reflective time, because it's an opposition that brings us into an opposition about relationships. So some of the things I've just talked about where are your defensive, where are your emotional defenses, where are your physical boundaries as well. You might need to think about your physical boundaries, of course, with Capricorn. And so that's something to do with relationships, potentially, always with an opposition, and with a full moon, which is of course an opposition. But also because of the reflective nature of a full moon, then it's also, there's that mirror effect, where that reflection, what's the reflection of yourself coming back at you when the light is full, which is what a full moon is. So basically that's just, yeah.
Oh, thank you, Mandy. Marcus?
That's really nice, Mandy. I really like the way you picked up on the sensitivity piece with Cancer. And I just noticed, this is really abstract, but I like my Antisha, which are these little reflection points.
Mm-hmm.
So 1 degree Cancer Capricorn in the Antisha, which I haven't, do I have to explain it? I suppose they're basically just solstice. They're based on the length of day and night at different times of year. So degrees of the zodiac reflect onto each other based on their distance from the solstice points. So 0 Capricorn, 0 Cancer are the winter and summer solstices in the northern hemisphere, reverse that in the southern hemisphere respectively. So if 1 degree Capricorn reflects onto 29 degrees Sagittarius, and 1 degree Cancer reflects onto 29 degrees Gemini, because when the sun is there, it's exactly the same length of day and night, mirrored as when the sun is in the other degree. So the point here is this, actually what you're saying about the sensitivity, this full moon is actually completing a T-square to Neptune through the Antisha. So as a traditional astrologer, I wouldn't count this T-square to Neptune because it's out of sign, but it is in the, so I mean, it is actually by either traditional or modern standards. Now, some traditional astrologers wouldn't use Neptune, they'd ignore Neptune, I grant you that, but I personally do. And by either method, this full moon is definitely making a square to Neptune, which will amp up this sense of, like, full moon's always all cards on the table, like something comes to the full surface at a full moon, like feelings come up and things become apparent to you, and maybe issues come up in your life, or maybe it's just a sort of feeling of, oh, this is something comes to the surface, something comes up from the bottom of the cauldron. And here it might be sort of like a sense of disillusionment, or something where there's a sense of confusion, or a realization perhaps that something is getting a little bit, like Neptune always is a sense of hope coupled with disillusionment is what I usually give Neptune. It's sort of like, you want it to be that, but you sort of know it isn't, so that there's a sense of maybe that coming up. And I'm focusing more on the slightly negative side of Neptune there, because it's squaring that Neptune. There's a sense of resistance to that revelation. So it's not likely to be this, oh, beautiful visionary thing. It's more likely to be this, oh, I feel little bit disillusioned maybe. And then on a more positive note, perhaps, Venus is with the sun. So that will kind of soften things up, maybe put a bit more emphasis on domestic harmony. So it's not a big brewing argument situation. And from a traditional point of view, Mars in Taurus, which we've already talked about, potentially sometimes being a bit challenging. The moon in Capricorn isn't very happy there, but they do have what's called a generosity in traditional astrology there, because Mars is in the sign of the moon's exaltation, and the moon is in the sign of Mars's exaltation. So because both of those planets aren't particularly happy in those signs, it may not be superb, but it's like whatever comes up at the full moon, whatever feelings or issues, something to do with like disillusionment, maybe some people just have an urge to get terribly drunk, whatever does come up, there may be a good avenue for letting that out through some sort of just doing some positive physical activity. Maybe not when you're drunk. I wouldn't suggest putting shelves up when you're actually drunk, but like around the time of the full moon, there may be some inspiration to sort of like do some physical stuff that's more constructive, perhaps around the home, and maybe that'll help to ease any tensions at home, something like that. I don't know. Just
Yeah. All right, I have a shade to build up. Anyone who want to help me, please just call me. DM me, please.
Maybe because it's squaring Neptune, everyone will just want to flop about on the sofa. I don't know, but
Sorry, Mandy was about to say something.
Just say a couple of things. Neptune, I always think of the word yearning. That disillusion, disappointment with that is often associated with Neptune. I always think yearning. It leaves you yearning in some way. It's that kind of, that sort of
it's a wistful, like
that's kind of yearning in your heart, because the sun, of course, is all about the heart. So we're not talking heartbreak here. Well, I hope not anyway. But the other thing I want to point out is the degrees that these planets are at. So the full moon itself, it's just over 1 degree of the two of the cardinal signs, Cancer and Capricorn, which is known as the Aries point. It might be 7 minutes off the Aries point. It might be a little bit wide, but I'm going to take it anyway. And the Aries point is really interesting because it's the point at which the private becomes public. And why that's relevant here is because a full moon is often where the private becomes public as well. So that's quite interesting, especially when you see that Pluto is the great keeper of secrets, but the great revealer of secrets, which is also at 1 degree. It's making a quincunx aspect here to the sun, which is the quincunx aspect is one of these awkwardness that often comes out in relationships, misunderstanding, not quite getting each other. So that's something to think about. And also we're talking about the degrees as well. If you look at the Neptune there, that out of sign T-square that Marcus was talking about so eloquently, is at 29 degrees 54, which means it's right at the end of Pisces. It's not ready to go into Aries yet. It's going to go back again, but it is not only very much approaching that Aries point that we've been talking about, which is the 0 degree of Aries, but it's also what's called the anaretic or the critical degree, which is the 29th degree of any, when the planet's in the 29th degree of any sign, that critical anaretic degree, where things can feel bigger than they are, things can feel more urgent than they are. Neptune in Pisces isn't particularly known for its restraint, but remember, we do have that Capricorn ruled moon here, which is, probably does hold, it's a reserved moon. So are you kind of eating your own feelings? That's something to think about perhaps in this.
I love that, Mandy, because traditionally Taurus, Mars rules appetite. So that could be one of the more negative things with this generosity between the moon in Capricorn and Mars and Taurus. I love that. You could potentially be eating your feelings a little bit around this moon, so just watch out for that too.
Literally and figuratively.
Yes, literally and figuratively.
I can't wait to eat all loads of food. Look on the bright side. I can't wait to eat loads of food. Well, thanks, Marcus and Mandy. I mean, we have a lot of fun to share all this information. And the new moon on the, new moon on the Gemini is full of a colorful and bubbly and just like a jumping in and out. But suddenly when you change it to the full moon, it's kind of what you going to eat your feeling. Okay, that is a little bit, we have to pay attention, especially with those bubble and with the Neptune at 29 degree and the T-square for in whatever way, Marcus and Tisha way, or the modern astrology using the, out of sign aspect, but still for the T-square. And that would be pretty interesting with those Neptunian fantasy or maybe dreams. But, and I like Mandy's take about that sun quincunx Pluto. I can't wait to see more things to be revealed, especially we have election. This is just before the general election, a formal before general election. So many things going to be, look his bank account, look his private life, family life, and how much money his wife spent on here and there, I don't know who said wife, but anyway, but also Trump's trail that was quite surprised, but we still thinking, yeah, they're probably going on for a while, but this will be a very interesting full moon to see, Well, thanks everyone. Thanks Mandy and Mark for joining me for this monthly talk. And then don't forget tomorrow we have Louisa going to talk about family astrology, and in July, Margaret's going to talk about relationship, what rather than who. And then in August, we have Sue Tompkins going to help us to do chart interpretation. So thanks everyone. Thanks Monday. Thanks Marcus.